And I'm going to start. I'm Carol Engel Enright. I'm from SOSIS. And I just want to say in 2021, a group of citizens came together and said, maybe we could form a school, something where people could have great conversations, and we could develop leadership in our community. And if you're interested, we did it. There's 45 courses. I don't know that we teach, not all at the same time, and it's step by step and little by little. But here we are in 2025. And I do want to thank Eric and Jake. Jake is on our project team. They're both in Florida doing the MS bike.
Just give a hand to left-hand group.
Yeah. And I also want to say, Jenny reminded me last night, Mike's astrophotography. And we went to Devil's Tower, and I made a bed because he was going to photograph the Milky Way over Devil's Tower. But, of course, there's a billion stars, and I'm sitting there in this awe and wonder, and my phone rings. And it's after 9 o'clock, and I never answer after 9 o'clock, but I did. And Jenny Schuster in the back, she's on our project team too. She said, hey, do you have that school? Is that school going yet? And I said, oh, it's going. And she goes, well, do we have candidates yet? Like, are we? But here we are. That was maybe 2-3 years ago. And here we are. And so I'm happy we're here. And there's been a whole committee that's thought about this, thoughtful questions. How do we have great discourse? How do we bring the moderators in? And we have beautiful candidates. And I just want to thank all of you for being willing to serve your community. And we're going to do a little bit of teaching first. Mike, I get the pleasure of traveling the country with Mike and having him talk to audiences about our community, how great this community is. And sometimes we think about all the problems we have, and yet we live in a city that is so well respected, so looked up to, and so expanded, so full of goodness. So the other thing I will pass around. In 2018, Mike wrote an article about leaders in our city, and he asked some important questions. And because it's a Times Call article and it was going to be 5 pages to print off, he's going to go over these questions, and I'll pass these out to think about as you think who you want to put in office. Who do you want on our city council? But that doesn't mean that you're not responsible to the community too. That we want a city council that works with all citizens in this great community and collaborates and creates, and it's okay.
Sorry about that.
So I'm going to give it over to Mike. You all know him. He served this city for 26 years as the public safety director, and now he works to bring leadership and civility for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. All right, we have a full house, and so we're still trying to find, and if anybody else walks in, we'll find them a seat. So we're going to get going. Here's how tonight's going to go. I'm going to do about a 15-20 minute presentation. It's kind of a snippet, kind of a shortened version of a class that we teach in our school. SOSIS, Carol said she's part of SOSIS. She's one of the co-founders. The School of Statesmanship, Stewardship, and Service. That's what SOSIS stands for. And so we've been working on this, as Carol said. We've had a project team of close to 35 or 40 people over the years. We have developed a repertoire of 45 different courses. And so, in fact, right now we are teaching as we speak. We taught last night. We're teaching every Wednesday night for a few weeks. Yeah. Sorry, what? No, I don't. No, no, no. I want, no, thank you though for that. We'll have more, Rachel, we have more chairs? Yep. So Rachel's bringing more chairs. So as you can see, this could be a standing room only kind of event. So thank you all for your presence. I also want you to know that this is being videoed by Longmont Public Media. And so Longmont Public Media is an incredible organization. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. They've been here every night. We've been doing Pints and Perspectives. We're into our 5th month. Every other Thursday night we've been meeting. The first 8 weeks were all topical. The last 3 weeks are Meet the Candidates. And so we're into the second of those 3 weeks, and we'll be introducing our moderator and the candidates here shortly. So anyway, but I do want to get going. So anyway, here's a new role for our community leaders. We need leaders. We just need them to show up differently. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, so hang in there. So the current focus is we tend to see leaders as the cause. They're the cause of everything, and everybody else is just the effect. And so leaders are in the foreground. All others are in the background. We've romanticized leaders, in our opinion, and Sosa's opinion, way too much in terms of saying that they're responsible for everything. Leaders are the leverage point on which communities, states, countries, even our planet are built or rebuilt or recreated. And that the only accountability that we have in our midst is with the leaders, with the tops of organizations, with the tops of community. Okay, and so only the leaders are worth talking about. Now, we're here at a candidate forum. This is a legitimate reason to kind of say, hey, who do we want as our leaders? And we're going to be talking about that in a moment. Come on in, find a chair. Welcome. So the results of this very traditional patriarchal focus, by the way, is that this lens, it lets all of us, the citizens, off the hook. Because the only people in charge and the only people accountable are the people at the top. No one else has to take any kind of accountability. And so it breeds dependency and entitlement. That's what happens when we treat leaders, when we over-romanticize them, when we say they're the cause and everybody else is the effect. We're not responsible. We minimize the ideal that each person, and this is what we teach in our school, each person has to be accountable. They have to be accountable to each other, and they have to be accountable for the good of the whole. And that we can no longer necessarily delegate and defer responsibility to the leaders or to the government or to where I came from, public safety. And so there's got to be a different way. Okay, more people coming in. So the changes that we think the leaders can consider, welcome everybody, there should be seats, there will be seats in the back, is to create environments and cultures. Say what? Okay. So when people start walking through, just tell them where the seats are at so they just don't kind of meander to the back. So here's what we think leaders need to be able to do more of, to create environments and cultures where people know their voice counts, their thoughts matter, their humanness is valued. Now, what that doesn't mean, folks, is that you get your way. Just because your voice counts doesn't mean you get your way, okay? It just means your voice counts. You create a culture of accountability where people choose accountability. Often we try to bring about accountability in organizations and in communities by legislating it. Let's pass a law. Let's stiffen a penalty as if that will kind of create an insurance policy that's going to protect us from the human condition. I've never seen a law do that, folks. I've been in the business of enforcing laws for 40-some years in my life, and I've never seen a law do that. Typically, it's the mores that drive that more than anything else. And so cultures of accountability where people get to choose accountability. Welcome. Come on in, folks. Hey, let them know where there's chairs. Place more emphasis on leaders. Here's leaders. We have 5 leaders that are going to join our crowd here real soon, or join us up front here real soon. Place more emphasis on inviting people to have their voice heard, convening people, harmonizing contrast. We talked a little bit about that the last time. Lots of contrast in our midst, lots of divisiveness, lots of polarization. How can leaders, instead of sitting in there kind of digging in their heels, begin to harmonize those contrasts? We teach that skill set. And how to connect dots across complex environments. So these are what we think leaders are going to need to be able to do into the future. Communication that's appealing, able to communicate with different minds and personalities, bring out empathy and others, stimulate imagination and new ideas, and critical thinking. You know, be a critical thinking without arousing the antagonisms of others, or without bringing in resentment or the sense of defensiveness. So that's a skill set that we can learn, and we teach that in our school. Skilled at asking powerful questions. This is all about getting people to make a commitment, to choose accountability, and to take action. And so come on in. Sorry, folks. All right. So here are the 10 questions that you're going to get a copy. If you already have a copy of them, great. Come on in. You're at the right place, I think.
I'm not so sure about that.
All right. Well, here's a seat right here. Hey, sir. Here's a seat right here. All right. Thank you. 10 questions we should ask. Now, these are questions you need to ask yourselves. These aren't the questions that the candidates are going to get tonight. These are questions you need to ask yourselves when you're selecting a leader. This is what we believe. Number one, do they see communities as problems to be solved, or do they see them as possibilities? Do they see it through the lens of deficiencies, or do they see the goodness, so to speak? Do they believe systems, improved expertise, and better leadership in the professionals are the foundation of a great community? Or do they believe and understand that great communities are really made up of great citizens? Okay, now I'm not saying we need good government, we need good leaders, we need expertise, we need improved services, we need that effectiveness and efficiency. But that shouldn't be the one and only driver of what makes a great community. Up until now, that's kind of how we think. What we believe in SOSIS is that great citizens make great communities. 3, try to convince you that they are the answer to your problems, or do they encourage you to believe you are the author of your own destiny and experience? Believe our country, state, and community organization should work for everyone, or do they create divisiveness and kind of sink back into their box of partisanship? Market fear and fault and let us know why we should be afraid, or do they talk about how our greatness is determined by our goodness? We often attach the word greatness to things like accomplishments and athletics or any kind of skill set. Well, I want you all to think about changing that sense of greatness to greatness is determined by the content of our goodness. And so if we have a great community, we're a good community. If you're a great person, you're a good person. Along those lines. They reinforce self-interest and isolation, or are they committed to the well-being of the whole? Do they believe social and health issues can be solved by ramping up laws and oversight? Or do they embrace the idea that healing and restoring only occurs when those who are marginalized or struggling are supported and cared for, embraced by a whole community? That gets into, well, I remember there's just a lot of health and social issues in every community, and every time it seems like the elected officials want to pass a law to try to fix those complex social and health issues, and it doesn't work. What does work is when people take care of one another. And what I'm not going to talk about tonight, what we talk about in our school is the up and coming perspectives and research that's coming out of neuroscience that says that one of the greatest healing sources we have are loving, healthy relationships. And so how do we do that? And we have lots of examples of what that might look like. Do they see the abundance in our community, or do they operate from a scarcity mindset? And the last 2 questions is, do they have the internal temperament to invite and convene all voices to find common ground and to harmonize the contrast? Or do they default to partisanship? Or do they just provide answers, or are they adept at asking questions? And so if you go to a council meeting, or if you go to a council with coffee, oftentimes they're on the hot seat, and they have to have the answers. And I think great leaders now are really good at trying to ask questions, as I said earlier, that evoke a sense of commitment, where people choose accountability and where people are willing to take action. So my last slide is, here's a new role. Here are the new roles for citizens. We can no longer blame leaders and in the same breath declare our own innocence. That's an old model, folks. That is a very old model. We have to start saying we're accountable. We're just as accountable as the leaders. Ownership is when we take responsibility for what's currently here, whether it's an act of omission or commission. And ownership is also about taking a sense of responsibility for creating a new future. It's not just the leader's responsibility to do that. It's everybody's responsibility. We need to choose leaders who can galvanize a whole community. We need to be the authors of our own destiny. We need to be caring connectors in our neighborhoods. We need to be responsible for our own safety. We need to be personally accountable for the good of the whole, and we need to care for the unfortunate and learn how to bring their gifts to the center. And so, that's the extent of what we're doing tonight with the School of Statesmanship, Stewardship, and Service. I just gave you a 15-minute snippet that normally takes 3 to 4 hours to go over, and there's a lot more. So anyway, if you want to know more about SOSUS, we have information. But for now, let's get on with Meet the Candidates. And what I'd like to do is to bring up our moderator, John Creighton. Let's give him a hand, John Creighton. John Creighton is the current CEO of High Plains Bank. Some of you know John Creighton from other circles and from other circumstances, but that's what he also does. He is a truly insightful, wise person. We're very grateful that he chose to be a moderator tonight. Welcome. Well, I think we just found the youngest person in our crowd right there. Yay. All right. So I'm going to hand this mic over to John, and we'll get going.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it, and appreciate the thoughts you shared, and I'm glad it was recorded that someone said I'm insightful. I'll have to share that with my staff tomorrow. But really, I appreciate the audience being here, and building on what Mike talked about, really encourage all of you to think about as you're listening to the candidates tonight, that no matter whom is elected, and whether you voted for them or not, what, as citizens of Longmont, can you do to help whoever is elected be successful in the role? And I really admire anyone who's willing to put their name on a ballot. I served 2 terms on the St. Vrain Valley School Board. I had the luxury of being unopposed in both elections, and so did not have to go through the kind of process that this group is going through. But putting your name out there, and putting your name out there to be, and you as a person to be judged by a community and potentially criticized by a community, that takes courage. And so I appreciate everyone who has done that. And most of all, I would like to thank the candidates' families, because taking on a role like this is no small undertaking, and it's a significant sacrifice of family time. And the family time, particularly on Tuesday nights, you're going to have to find something fun to do, because it's a lot of time away, and it really does take a family commitment to be able to make this work. So I'd actually like everyone to give a round of applause for the families of the candidates. So I'm going to invite the candidates up to the tables. And we'll just go in the order that I'm seeing them on top. So Steve Alschuler will be first. And then Alex Kalkoffer, thank you. I got some coaching on that before, and I still didn't quite get it right. John Lemke. John Marsing. Jake Marsing, sorry, Jake. Yep. So you'll see my spectacles are still in here. And Crystal Prieto, thank you. So you all may be wondering why there's clocks up here. So the format of this is that we will have no opening or closing statements, and each candidate has 12 minutes over the entirety of the evening to answer questions. I'm going to try to answer 6 questions, assuming that people don't use up their time, and each candidate has will decide how to manage their time. So if they want to give a lengthy answer on one question, they can do that. If they want to give a more abbreviated answer later. And we'll encourage you all to, it's behind you, so it's hard to keep track. We'll give you a chance to take a peek back and see how much time you have left as we go along. So we're going to move into the questions, but just one last piece of context before we go in terms of setting the stage. So the city of Longmont, we're what's known as a strong city manager form of government. And what that means is that the council is a policy setting group, not a management group. And so the role of the council is to be policy setters. And so the context of our questions are in that context of, as policymakers, how are you thinking about things? And so the first question, and we're going to dive right in, is around Envision Longmont. And Envision Longmont was a plan. There was a significant community input process several years ago used to put together Envision Longmont that outlined a strategy for long-term, to inform long-term policy setting for the community. So my question, and one last thing, the red coaster is in front of Alex. We're going to let Alex kick us off since it was there. And then when you're done, you can pass the red coaster down, Alex, and that's where we'll start the next time. So the question is, with Envision Longmont, how will you, as a policy-setting member of the council, ensure that your work as a council moves the community toward the goals that the community members have established in Envision Longmont?
Alrighty. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to everybody watching. Thanks to everybody watching in the future too. So Envision Longmont is a master plan for us to look forward to in the future. It took a lot of community input, and I think we need to update it because a lot has changed since we wrote it a long time ago. And I think what we need to do is we need to continue to look into the future to provide ourselves a guiding post for where we should kind of position ourselves into the future. Envision Longmont is great for a very high level plan, but when you look at it, there's nothing about costs or how we're going to implement anything. So I think we need to use it as our guiding principle, but we also have to figure out how we're going to pay for some of these things. And right now, we're in a budget shortfall, so we need to make sure that when we're planning our next revision to Envision Longmont, which I think we need to, it was a plan that was intended to be updated over time, that we are trying to figure out how we're going to do it with the constraints of our tax base. Our sales tax revenue is down, so let's make sure that when we are looking into the future, we're planning for the ups and downs. Thank you.
In Envision Longmont, if anyone hasn't read it, it does call for it to be updated twice a year. It hasn't ever been updated in the 9 years, I think, since it's been created. So that would be a good start to start updating it. It also has a whole bunch of to be determined for some specific targets around things that we wanted to have in terms of affordable housing, and I'm not even sure all of them. I don't have them all memorized, but we really should have what those targets are and the current state. It was published without the current state of a whole bunch of things that we wanted to improve, but if we don't know where we're at, we're not going to be able to improve the different things that we have. One of them, if I remember correctly, was around traffic safety. Doesn't have a standard for where we're at or where we're going to get to. One of the things, a very specific example that jumps out at me, it does not mention anything about traffic circles. We came here to Pints and Perspectives, and Erie changed their governing document to specifically call out traffic circles as the primary intersection to use. So that's a specific example of a thing we should update in Envision Longmont.
Well, thanks so much. My name is Jake Marsing, candidate for Longmont City Council. Thanks to SOSAS, thanks to Left Hand, thanks to all of you for spending your Thursday night. I'm a big believer in collective action and in the power of community coming together to address core challenges. And when we talk about our comp plan, there is no document more important to evaluating the needs of our comp plan than Envision Longmont. That plan is almost 10 years old now, and
Hold on, Jake. My laptop is freaking out.
laptop's freaking out. So
Laptop is freaking out.
I can sing a song, I can do a tap dance. I can just give my stump if y'all want to hear that. No? Oh, we're going? Okay, thank you so much. That's my wife, Becca. Thank you so much for keeping me on time, love. So essentially, that Envision Longmont plan was established with 16,000 data points of collective community action over the course of the process. We, at this point in time, desperately need new community action, new community engagement around Envision Longmont. There are so many people in our community, frankly, including folks at this table, who did not even live in Longmont when Envision Longmont was adopted. We need to do a reset on that process and reevaluate what our core goals are, specifically around places that Envision Longmont doesn't address. We heard some of them. I want to make sure that we relook at how we ensure the construction of more for-sale housing. We address issues like rising costs. So the question is about how we make sure that our actions as council members address the things in Envision Longmont that community members established. The input, I think we have to get some new inputs that those community members can establish and reinvest in that process.
So I just want to echo what they said as far as our comprehensive plan being kind of outdated. One great example is some current issues that we have right now, like our child care crisis. An astonishing fact that I recently heard was, I believe we only have 18% of licensed facilities or childcare facilities to meet the need of our community, only 18%. And so when we look at things like comprehensive plans like Envision Longmont, we've shifted as a community, our needs have shifted. And so I think one of the most important things is we're going to have to re-review that as a community come 2026. One of the things, so to the question is how are we going to stay on track? And that's important because council has to navigate like community input as well as different policies coming through as well as tackling new challenges, and it can be really tricky. And so one of the things that I will make sure to do is ensure that everything that we're taking on, all of the policies, all of the projects, all of the community concerns, that they're in alignment with Envision Longmont, that we're not getting derailed in our mission and our purpose. And a great example is I currently work for the Emergency Family Assistance Association. It's an over 100-year nonprofit, one of the best nonprofits here in Boulder County. And just recently, they had to kick off their Christmas gift program because it doesn't align with their comprehensive plan. So we have to make sure we're on track constantly in order to make progress, because if not, we're going squirrel here, going squirrel there, and that's not helpful for us, it's not helpful for our community, and it doesn't serve us any justice. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Altschuler, and I'm a little bit different than everybody else. I can't help it. There are some great ideas in Envision Longmont. My question for you is, how do you all envision Longmont? When I've looked at some of the plans, it looks like almost a 15-minute city. It looks like Denver. They want to have 7, 10, 14-story buildings. They want everything crammed in really close and tight to each other. They don't handle all the traffic that, well, for instance, there's a mayor candidate that wants to build 14,000 new homes. That's 30,000 more cars and 50,000 more people. Is that how you envision Longmont? 150,000 people trying to drive around? That's not how I envision Longmont. There are some great features in Envision Longmont as far as more diverse housing for different people, ways of having more businesses in Longmont so more people work locally and don't have to drive to Boulder and Erie, and that will reduce traffic. So there are some very good features in there, but I am not 100% sold on the things that I have read. Thank you.
So the next question, John will kick us off, and this is around style of governance. And the question is, when you make policy decisions, how will you balance input from professionals and experts with the opinions of your vocal constituents?
The way I would balance that is you need to hear what people are saying, which is different from listening to what they're saying. People say, like, I'm frustrated with this thing, but the root cause of whatever problem they might be bringing to you is not necessarily the first thing that they say. So it's really important to ask a lot of questions about people who aren't experts, because they're trying to articulate, I feel this pain, but they're, at least in my field of work, people are not able to always give you the technical word for what it is they're experiencing. So it's really important to filter that and ask people those deep questions so that you can go to people who are experts and say, hey, like, this is what people are feeling in the community and their pain, and this is what we really need to solve for those individuals. And so I think that it's the elected leaders' responsibility to make sure we're bridging that gap, because I see all too often technical experts are not able to hear what people in the community are saying because they speak two different languages. That's how I would approach it.
So in the context of council, most of the time when we're talking about experts, we're talking about staff. And I want to be really clear that the city of Longmont has a tremendous staff. We have a really hardworking, dedicated staff of people that serve our city. But staff ultimately cannot be experts on all things. And for many people in staff and in our community, the experiences are going to be different. The data that staff sees on a spreadsheet does not necessarily match the lived experience of our residents. And that's why we have an elected board of residents who serve as our city council in the first place, so that we can take that community input, work with staff as the liaison and the intermediary to address community challenges. The biggest one, I think we see some discrepancy around this, and I'll use the example of traffic. Longmont used to be a city that you can get around in 10 minutes without pretty much any issue. When was the last time anybody in here was able to get across town in 10 minutes, right? But if you ask folks at the city right now in our engineering department, they'll tell you that very few of our roads, if any, are at capacity. That's not the lived experience that I have, and it's not the lived experience of most folks in our community. So what my job is as a member of council then is to sit down with our staff and say, okay, what are you seeing? Here's what I'm hearing. Let's come together and find solutions in policy that can make an improvement in the lives of our residents. My job is to listen to staff, work with staff, help them implement the policies that residents elect me to enact, and that's going to be my fundamental goal.
Alrighty, so I really value community voice. I've met with thousands of families over the years and served them directly, heard their stories, challenges, understood some of the lack of resources that they've received, and just a multitude of challenges in the community. And so I think this really gives me an appreciation for community voice, because like one of the other candidates here said today, that's their experience, and it doesn't make it any less true just because they don't hold a title. Using kind of Jake's example of city staff only know their own world, and when we're referring to our city staff, the majority of them don't even live in Longmont. So I would take that into consideration as well. I think it's important to take both pieces when making policy and making sure that we're really tuning in to community voice, community experience, meeting their needs, as well as meeting the needs of our city, the systems, policies, processes, and procedures, and the staff as well. I think it's a balancing act, and I also want to just highlight the importance of valuing our staff and showing them that we value them. They work super hard, and especially the City of Longmont staff. Harold Dominguez will tell you, our city manager will tell you, that they're stretched really thin. And so one of my favorite quotes are, they're not machines, they're human beings. And so I think we can really cultivate an environment of collaboration and take all these different components and pieces of information when creating good policy. It's not either this or that. It's taking it all in and sitting down with one another and coming up with innovative ideas to make this work. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm old enough that when I went to school, we were taught that if you're going to run for public office, you are a public servant. That's not a master. It's not someone that's giving orders. The elected officials are supposed to be the voice for the community, because it's not practical to have a vote on every little thing that comes along. So I would be the public servant for the public. I need to have the public speak up. We talk about Tuesday nights at City Council, and sometimes there's only 20 people there. Once in a while, if there's a huge issue, there might be 50 or 60 people. And of course, you can also reach us by emails. But the more that the public speaks up, the more that anybody on city council can have a reasonably diversified decision. And there's always room for the experts. We need to talk to the experts. And just like myself, we don't know what we don't know. We should make sure that the experts we talk to have a variety of backgrounds. Not just one expert that'll tell us whatever they believe is right. And then ultimately, the public servant, there are times when we just need to make that decision and run with it.
Steve brings up a good point. We are public servants. We need to be out in the community more. We need to engage with the community in better ways. City council meetings are not the best to get a dialogue between the residents and city council or even staff. So I pledge to be out in public, tell people where I'm going to be, to make sure that you have the opportunity, whatever day or whatever time it is, for you to voice to me so I can be a conduit for your voice. Because you can't always go to those study sessions. You might be on a trip or you might be working. So come to me where I'm at. I will be out in the community getting as many inputs as possible. So we need to get inputs from the community, either through me or through surveys. We need to collect the data to understand what we're dealing with, and then we can turn to the experts, whether it's internally or externally. Our city staff are great, but they might not know what's happening outside of our community, and they might need some additional bandwidth that we can provide by giving them some extra help through some experts. And I think we need to then work with the experts and then the community and say, this is how we think this might go. How does the community feel about the direction this is going? So it needs to be more than one touch point where we are chatting with the community, not just once, but multiple times. Once we get more information, more data, we also have to have follow-ups to make sure that we're truly understanding what the community is needing and what they're saying. Thank you.
Great. Jake will kick us off for the third question.
Oh boy, all right.
And this is around city culture. So as a policy-setting leader, what areas of city government most need your focus to promote a culture of community service?
Can you repeat the question just one more time?
You bet. As a policy-setting leader, what areas of city government most need your focus to promote a culture of community service?
I think it starts with our human services folks, Christina Pacheco, Eliberto Mendoza, the folks in that department that serve a direct interface between our council, our nonprofit communities, and the real ways that council is interacting with direct residents in their day-to-day lives. That's, having had the chance, Crystal is currently on the board. I've been on the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board in the past. I was vice chair of that board. I think having the chance to work directly with that staff that oversees those issues, those are the issues that impact folks' lives most directly. That and in a positive way, that department I would mention specifically. And then, Chief Butler being here, maybe in a less positive way, the Public Safety Department. We have to make sure that we're overseeing our Public Safety Department effectively, that we're working as collaboratively as we can with that department. And in general, my role is going to be to make sure that as a leader, I'm bringing people to the table on every discussion. We're having good conversation. I will never turn down a meeting. I will get back to folks within 24 hours, and we will be able to engage together on the issues that impact our residents.
Okay, so I only have 2 minutes. I have lots of ideas, but I'll just use one example. One of the areas that I want to put most of my attention on is the staff. So I just spoke with Harold Dominguez not too long ago, and he went over the budget for the city as a whole and what the increase looked like for the City of Longmont Housing and Human Services Board. And thankfully, it increased a little bit, so we're able to still provide for the need for Longmont for now. A lot of work to do, but we're not going to go into that. One of the areas that I really want to focus on is how thin these departments are stretched, but the expectations that we put on them. And a really great example is our housing and community investment team. Now, we're gonna come and we're gonna sit here and give you all these wonderful ideas about development and how Longmont can look and affordable housing and attainable housing and programs around housing. But at the end of the day, these ideas go to that team, which is only a team made up of maybe 3 to 4 people at most. And then they're supposed to go off and execute. Right now, as it stands, I think the reason we've been seeing the same type of development, the same kind everywhere we go, is because that's the development that they have the capacity to output. These people are working with developers. They're applying for grants. They're staying on top of these grants. Just recently, they were running the rehab program in which they were climbing on roofs and giving estimates. Okay, thankfully, we gave that program to Brothers Redevelopment. But just the point of the story is to say we need to really invest in those teams, especially the ones that we're depending on really turning the needle when it comes to housing, providing affordable housing, attainable housing, and opportunities for young people to get into their own homes. So that would be one of the departments I would focus on and one of the things as a city council member. Thank you.
So I'm going to wrap up my last question real quick before I go to this one. I just wanted to mention that I've been in business for 35 years as owning my own businesses, working 60 hours a week. We need to get businesses more involved in Longmont. We need more, better businesses to hire more people. One of the commitments that I have made is that after being elected, I will go to the Chamber of Commerce monthly after hours, at least 10 times a year. They do them once a month. I will go and talk to the business people and see what the individual businesses need for them to be more successful and be able to hire more people and start that economic wheel rolling again. With the question about the policy setting, the areas that need the most focus, the 2025 budget was $460 million. We are roughly $200 million over budget. We need some people on city council that know how to do a budget and know how to stick with it and not just keep raising taxes and bring in more and more money. It's not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. And also in 2022, City Council spent probably $100,000 doing a survey. The three things that people disliked the most about Longmont were traffic, crime, and homelessness. All three are worse now than they were 3 years ago. We need a city council that will listen to the citizens of Longmont. I am one of them. You can choose one of the others.
So going back to the question, the city culture, the city staff, whenever anybody interacts with the city staff individually, they are amazing people. When you start to have to cross different departments, that's where things start to kind of crumble a little bit. I don't know the last time somebody pulled a permit for anything, whether a business or for a home. It's challenging. And what I think we can do to help the city staff be more efficient is work on our staff as if we are a company and work on improving our customer service, giving them the tools and the bandwidth to be efficient and productive. Because right now there's a lot of silos and it's really hard for them to navigate the system internally. And I think the city staff needs that help from city council and the direction from the city staff to make sure that they have the tools in their toolbox to be the best that they can be, because they are passionate and they really care about serving the people. But we need to make sure as soon as it goes outside of their department that they have the resources that we provide for them to make them better stewards for us. And then I think inviting people to participate. The more I see everybody and I talk to you all, the more I get excited. We need to get more people involved so they can see the city staff work. The reason why I'm up here is because I got on transportation board and I was so passionate about how awesome the city staff is that I wanted to do more. So the city staff is great, but we need to give them the tools so they can be even better. Thank you.
So the areas to focus on for the city's culture, this is not in a particular order, but the budget, right? Where you put your focus and your money goes a long way to telling people what's important in the city, and that flows down through the staff. I think that whoever's interacting with the business community is really important, because a lot of our businesses that I've talked to have been very frustrated with how hard, as Alex said, you have to get approval from multiple permits, or multiple departments in the government have to approve, and they will disagree, and then there's no way to get it past both of them. The personnel in Longmont, knowing what their pain points are is going to be really helpful to make sure that we're addressing what they feel. And then also looking at everything that we can to delegate down. We should be giving direction and then letting people make decisions at the lowest level possible. Because if people are getting micromanaged, it doesn't matter what organization, people are going to be very, very frustrated being micromanaged. And we should be able to trust our staff with our policies to make good decisions and to help out the community.
Great, thank you. So we'll pass it on down to Crystal. We're halfway through the 6 questions, so if the candidates would like to take a peek behind them to check their time, and so that they can manage it as we go through this. And I'm going to give Crystal a 5-second gap between me asking the question and answering, because it's a little bit, I would say it's a little bit tougher than the ones before, and since she's going first, we'll give her that opportunity. So, what's a real life example of a time where you had to make a decision between competing demands or goals? And how did you prioritize to come up with a decision? And I'll read that one more time. What's a real life example of a time where you had to make a decision between competing demands or goals, and how did you prioritize to come up with the decision?
Okay. I think as a mom, right, living in Longmont, I have to provide, right? And I think one of the most important things I think is so important is that children have time with their parents and are able to really develop and build relationship and learn. And I think in my life, but I also know it's very true for many parents right now living in Boulder County, the priority is making a living and working and providing for your family. Even though my goal is to raise my children and raise them to be good little citizens and to provide for their every need and cook them super healthy meals, at the end of the day, I have to provide. And so that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. On a professional level, I would say even this campaign is an example. I want to win all of these candidates right here. But at the same time, this is a lot of work and it requires collaboration. And I also want them to win too, right? And so some of the things that I've been doing is figuring out how do we work together to get everybody ahead, and really extending my hand to help others and collaborating even with other candidates who are not in this room to do lit drop and make sure we all make it to the finish line, no matter who wins, that we helped each other and we made it. And so I could stand on my own, like, selfish ambitions, but that doesn't do the city good. I want to make sure that the city has the information that they need, and if it means that I collaborate with another candidate and do lit drop, then that's what I'm doing, and that's what I have been doing. So sorry I don't have a better example for you, but my brain kind of went blank. Thank you.
I have to read my notes. So a real life experience for me, and I can probably come up with a whole bunch of them. But in 1998, I started a window covering business called Oasis Interiors. I did this out of my garage, and this was April of 1998. 4 months later, in August, and obviously when you start up a business, there wasn't a whole lot of business to begin with. But each month, it was getting a little bit better. I made $500, I made $1,000. And before that, I'd worked for a carpet store in Longmont because I'd had my own carpet business in California. And the owner was on vacation, was going on vacation. One guy had just quit, and the owner and I were really good friends. He said, "Steve, my wife and I are going to London. We can't cancel this trip. Is there any chance you could come and work for me for a month and help man the store? I know you're starting your own business, but could you possibly do that?" And I did. In that 1 month of August, I made like $8,000 in commission, and I'd only been making $1,000 on my own. So Bob comes back and he looks at the number. He's like, "You sure you don't want to just come back to work for me and be here full time?" And I tossed and turned about it, and I said, you know what? I have faith in myself. I know that I can run this business and make this business great. So I said, no, I'm not going to come back to work for you. I'm going to run Oasis Interiors. Within 2 years, I was the largest window covering distributor in Boulder County, and it just kept getting better and better after that. So that was a challenge because it was very tempting, but ultimately, I have a lot of faith in myself.
I work for Teladoc Health, and we import medical devices for folks with chronic care disabilities, one of them being diabetes or hypertension. And we import, as many other companies do, from overseas. And it's very complicated. Supply chains, hurricanes, port strikes, tariffs impacts, it's very difficult. COVID was the biggest wrinkle in supply chain in years. Normally it's about 35 days from China to the US. It was taking 60, 75 days to get product to the US. And you can't tell somebody who has type 1 or type 2 diabetes, I'm sorry, we're on back order. And that is very challenging for me and my day-to-day because I want to make sure that I am supporting people to live their healthiest lives. And for us at Teladoc, I manage all those containers, and I have to make sure that that demand is being met. And that is super challenging, but the way that you solve it is you take a breath, look at all of your options, and then you speak with anybody who's able to. You work on your connections to pull on the strings that you have available. I have very good relationships with all of my vendors. I can call them at 4:55 on a Friday, and they will pick up the phone because we have a mutual respect. And when I call them and I say, hey, Jay, I need a Hail Mary. I need you to get this container as quickly as possible so we don't go out of stock. So really taking a breath, trying to figure out what relationships you have, leverage those to make sure that you are getting to the goal that you need to get. Thank you.
For me, one of the really challenging decisions I had to make in the past few years was whether to stay in Longmont or whether to move back to a town just outside of Buffalo, New York. So I was born and raised just outside of Buffalo, moved to Colorado in 2009. And I had left the company I was at, had not started a new job, but a company that I had applied to a while ago called me up. And I was already in Buffalo, I think, for vacation, and interviewed, and it was like a dream job in Buffalo, but I also had a job at Seagate that I was supposed to start. And my wife and I, we had our first child, and it was pretty tough because our parents, my dad's actually here in the audience, still lives in Buffalo, right? It's like, do we move back to Buffalo, be with family? This job is really amazing. Or is Longmont the better place to raise our children? Well, one child at the time, 2 children now. And it took us all a week, I would say, to make that decision around the community we're in, everything about Longmont versus everything about Western New York. And my wife and I ended up deciding to stay here in Longmont because this is just a phenomenal community, and it took us about a week, but it definitely a significantly better place to raise children than where I had grown up.
So I really frame this in 3 different categories, and it's kind of 3 different questions. The first, and always will be first, is what does my family need? In 2020, I got invited to breakfast with somebody who I was an old mutual church friend, and we connected and had breakfast. If I had known it was a date, I wouldn't have invited her to breakfast, but that's what we did at Janie's Cafe. She happened to live in Thornton, and so there was a moment where I had to choose between staying in Longmont or moving to Thornton and getting married. And I made the choice to move to Thornton briefly. For about 2 years, we lived in Thornton, and that was the best choice that I ever made, because when my then wife, or soon-to-be wife, or the woman I thought was going to be my wife, said, hey, I live in Thornton, come live with me, I said, yeah, let's do that, because I'm going to always put my family first, and if voters in the city of Longmont or our residents want somebody who isn't going to put their family first in these decisions, then that's not me. The second piece are, what are my values? That's a question that I ask myself when I'm trying to prioritize between competing interests. When I worked in the legislature, I can't tell you how many times there would be a bill that would come in front of me and my boss that we knew was a bad bill, that we knew would hurt working class folks in our city, but that a friendly lobby that maybe had contributed to a campaign or had been kind to us or helped us out on a different bill would come and lobby for. The choice then for me as kind of a chief of staff role was to tell my boss what the best choice was. My advice always was to do what was right by our values, not by what any individual lobby does. Anybody that's contributed to me knows I will listen, I will engage. I'm not, my values will always come first regardless of that. And the third thing is history. I'm a history teacher by training. We can learn a lot, especially when we're evaluating the history of the city, about mistakes that have been made in the past that we can learn from as a council. And I'm excited to be able to try to do that on several different issues. So for me, it's about what does my family need, what are my values, and what does history tell us?
Great, thank you. So we're going to take a 7-minute break for those of you who may need a refill, or either stretch your legs. So we'll come back here and get started again at 5 minutes after the hour. Okay. So one thing I want to mention, and I forgot to do this at the beginning, and I apologize. There are 6 at-large candidates in the election. Regan Sage could not be here tonight. She was here at the previous event because she knew she couldn't be here tonight. And so she participated in that event and answered very similar questions. So
I did contact them. They are going to turn the air on. So hopefully we'll start feeling it soon. Apologize.
All right. So we have, depending on the amount of time we have left, we've got 2 questions left for sure. And if we have some time, we'll answer 3 more questions. I know some people have been managing their time for 6 questions, so we'll do a little bit of soccer overage time if we go into a seventh question. So, all right, and this time Steve's going to kick us off. And the question, Steve, is describe the Longmont you hope to see in 20 years, and how will we get there? So describe the Longmont you hope to see in 20 years, and how will we get there?
Actually, I really love Longmont the way it is right now, and preferably even the way it was 5 years ago. As I've mentioned several times, traffic has gotten a lot worse. Crime, homelessness are all a lot worse than before. The big changes that I would like to see happen to Longmont, in a way, have to do with housing. We don't have housing, or how can I say this, an opportunity for people to buy into real estate at a lower income level. The first place I ever owned was an apartment that was converted into a condo. We don't have condos in Longmont because of the condo liability laws that the state passed. I would like to see the city help, not necessarily that they have to do it, I'd like the city help with getting landlords to take apartments. They already have separate utility billing. They already have separate utilities and addresses. Convert them to condos, and if you can't call it a condo, call it a strawberry shortcake. I don't care. But convert it a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 2-bedroom, 1-bath to something that could be sold for between $150,000 and $200,000. The mortgage on that would be no more than they would pay by paying rent, but they'd actually own something that will go up with inflation. They will have tax write-offs and depreciation, and they can get into the real estate market and start building personal wealth. So the more we can help younger people start getting into real estate, the better Longmont will be. As I also mentioned earlier, the traffic here is terrible because 50% of the people drive out of town to go to work. We need more jobs in Longmont. We need better and higher paying jobs. Our city council right now has gone crazy with building low-income subsidized housing. And I'm sorry if this is hard for anyone to hear, But the reality is that someone that is receiving subsidized housing is not spending money in Longmont. They're not buying a new car. They're not going to the dentist. They're not buying carpeting. They're not buying window coverings. It is not helping the Longmont economy. We need people in Longmont, like with Seagate and Amgen, that make more money, that will go out and spend money, that will stimulate our businesses. Our businesses can hire more people, and the whole economic engine for Longmont will keep on running. That's what I'd like to see for Longmont. Thank you.
So in 20 years, for perspective, Aller, who's 8, will be 28, and Alice, who's 6, will be 26. I really hope they choose to build roots here in Longmont. Once they go to school or do whatever they're going to do, I hope they look back and say, hey, I really want to live in Longmont because that community is so awesome that I want to come back. Sure, when they're growing up, they're going to be like, I want to get as far away from here as possible. But when they're off in college or when they're off backpacking or doing whatever they want to do, I want them to think and say, you know what? Home is Longmont. And to do that, I want us to build more community. Our events are amazing. We just went to Oktoberfest on Saturday. We were dressed up and we didn't win, and Alice was really distraught about that. Next year, I told her I won't wear my campaign shirt and we might win again. But I want to build more community because the more I get to know each and every one of you, the more I love this city. This morning, I went to Front Range Community College for the first time to see their sim, and it blew my mind. This community is amazing. We need to bring the businesses that Front Range Community College can provide to these businesses like Seagate or Broadcom. Really great industry can come here and thrive. We also need to fill up all of the retail spaces that are vacant with really cool shops that make us unique. Urban Fields is what makes us unique. Unfortunately, not Five Guys or In-N-Out. Let's have really creative businesses that make us unique. So when people come for Sundance, they're like, wow, I want to come and spend my money in Longmont so we can get that sales tax, and then they can go home and then they can tell their friends, hey, maybe you should visit Longmont, and more people spend their sales tax revenue on us, and we can prosper and build more community because we are awesome, and let's lean on that.
I'm going to start this with a question. Can you raise your hand if you are rent burdened or you spend more than 30% of your income on rent? Does anybody here do that? 1, rent or mortgage. 3 people. Okay. 14,000 people in Longmont are currently facing that situation. So that's 33% of the city. So you ask me what I want to see in 20 years. I would love for nobody to be rent burdened. Nobody to be struggling to have a house. I would love for the city to be a lot safer. I would love for kids to not get hit by cars. This year, it's like I just learned that a child was hit and killed by a car. 5 to 10 people a year get hit and killed in car crashes in Longmont. I would love in 20 years for Longmont to have figured out how to pull people out of poverty, how to get people onto great career paths, how to make sure that every kid has enough food to eat, every kid has a bed, and that every other city in the country understands how it's done because they're looking at Longmont and they can say, oh, I know how to do it because Longmont did it and they showed us the way. That's what I'd like for Longmont to be in 20 years.
This is a question I think about a lot because, like a lot of the folks up here, I've got young kids too. And the reason I got into this race was to make sure that they could choose to be 5th generation Longmonters if they wanted to be. So we get there, I think, by making sure that Longmont is a place where working families can put down roots, where early childhood education is treated as essential infrastructure, and where our open spaces have been protected. If 20 years from now we can look back and say that we've checked those 3 boxes, we'll have come a long way. How do we get there? I think on housing, we have to make sure that we're investing in and encouraging for-sale development. We had a conversation earlier today where everybody at this table agreed that Longmont has enough apartments at this point. And I think that's where I'm at as well. We have to make sure that we are encouraging the development of housing that working families, nurses, teachers can afford to buy and put down roots in and build wealth in. That means being choosy when we can be, which isn't all the time, but council has the chance to be choosy around things like annexation. For example, the Quail Road proposal. I oppose it because I don't believe that that is an example of council being choosy about development. On the issue of early childhood education, my family and I are going to spend $3,000 this month sending our kids to daycare 4 days a week. That's an economic crisis for working families. We need to solve that issue, make sure that we are treating early childhood education as essential infrastructure. If 20 years from now, Longmont has successfully established and run an early childhood education special district that supports both families and providers, I think we will have come a long way in that fight of lowering costs for families. And then making sure we're protecting open spaces. Longmont voted to protect open space with 74% of the vote. I don't know the last time something got 74% of the vote, except that maybe we all like Left Hand and coming out and having a beer every once in a while. But we have to make sure that we're protecting open spaces. That means being really careful about proposals that create land swaps on open space and those kinds of issues. So for me, and the reason I got into this race is exactly this question. Because I really believe, whether it be the Envision Longmont topic we talked about earlier, or any of the other issues that we're dealing with, this council, the one that will be seated in December and deal with these issues over the next 2 years, is going to be the council that determines what Longmont looks like 20 years from now. I think this is the most critical council election that we've had in our city in a very long time, and that's why I believe we need a voice for working families in that conversation, and that's the advocacy I intend to bring.
All right. I'm a really good dreamer. So in 20 years, you said, right? Okay. I would want to see families were able to purchase a home and start building generational wealth for their children. I would want to see all children having access to extracurricular activities that they wouldn't originally have access to, or actually don't have access to right now because the cost is so high or they're non-existent. I would like to see a Longmont where parents have access to quality childcare that's affordable, so that we can have households that can, if they decide, they can both work and get ahead. And let me rewind a little bit, because before I got into this, I missed the most important part. I want to see a Longmont where families and individuals can work and their hard work pays off, not just keeps them afloat. I would like to see us create a blue zone here in Longmont, to where we're living to like 100 years old and we're riding our bicycle down that greenway because we perfected that recipe here. I would like to see clean water still, open space, and a reliable grid. Another thing is, in the event that there were a catastrophic event or any type of emergency, that we as a community were so bonded tightly together that we were ready to rise to that occasion. And then lastly, Steve, I'm going to have to disagree with you. We have an aging population who's going to need support with their rent. And I'm the council person that will support you. If that's you or a family member, I won't shy away from taking care of my community members. Thank you.
All right, this goes back to Alex. We'll kick us off, and we will, I'm just going to forewarn you, we will do 2 more questions. I'll give you a little bit of overage time since you managed for 6 questions. So 2 to go. What do you believe that the council can do so that you can work as a united team even when the individual members disagree on issues?
For me, I love building relationships. I like making food for people. I like breaking bread. I like shared experiences together. I respect everybody's opinion. I give everybody the chance to speak their mind. I also am an active listener, so you might see me nodding a lot. Might not mean because I'm agreeing with you, but it's because I'm listening to you. For me, we want to have a diverse perspective on council. We don't want to all have the same opinions. We want to make sure that we're listening to the folks who are more financially conservative, or the people who have more policy for services. But we need to listen to each other, and for me, I am the person who can bring people together to the table so we can have discussions. We're not going to always agree on something, but I want to have the space where you feel safe and comfortable and welcome to speak your mind, whether you're a citizen or somebody on council. I want to be able to represent everybody and have the conversation. And if we can't feel like we have a space to talk to each other, then we're failing. And I want to build that relationship with the council and also with the residents in Longmont as well.
In startups, they have a concept or an ideal or that's called disagree and commit. Startups aren't making money. You have to, just like the government actually does, only gets money from its taxpayers, right? You basically have to go to your taxpayers and say, give me money so I can go and do these things. And startups are not really that much different because they go to investors and say, hey, we're not making any money, give us some money. But you have to come together and quickly talk through whatever it is you're going to discuss to make a decision and then commit. Even if you've disagreed, what you've discussed and committed to as a group is what you have to move forward with and try to make succeed. If you're not trying to all work together, it will definitely fail. And you have to, I mean, this is not easy. It's easy to tell people to trust you. It's very difficult to build trust. And if you just automatically trust people, thankfully we are as trustful as we are, but it's very difficult to build trust with people. And it's one of those things where you have to build relationships with people that it's not personal if I disagree. I work in places where we've had to solve incredibly difficult problems, like incredibly difficult. When you're trying to we're working on a space probe to go to one of the moons in orbiting Saturn and land there. I mean, those are like ridiculous problems to solve, and you have all sorts of disagreements. But at the end of the day, you have to present all of what you're going to present and then make a decision to move forward and commit to it and then prove through your actions that it's going to work or not. And if it doesn't work, you have to be willing to come back without an ego and say, hey, it didn't work. Let's talk about what to do next.
So I disagree with a lot of folks. I think everybody up here disagrees with me on the issue of minimum wage, for example. I think if Steve and I sat down and had coffee, we'd maybe agree on one thing out of 10, right? The beauty of a place like City Council is because when we get together, we have the opportunity to grow together and work together on the things that we do agree on. Because my approach is I will always listen. I will always engage. I will always be willing to have the conversation. That's the skill that I think I've learned over the course of my life that a lot of us up here have. The beauty of council and the thing that I have loved about that body since I first got involved with it when I was a kid is because you have 7 members up there who are all experts or advocates in different spaces. You may have somebody like Steve who cares deeply about the financial success of our city, Alex who cares a lot about transportation, John who advocates for all sorts of different issues, ranked choice voting, tech issues, and Crystal whose heart is so big and cares so deeply for people. Together as a body, you can come together and advocate for the things that you share together and work towards a shared policy vision with one another. Together, council is generalists, even if as individuals we are experts or advocates on those core issues that we care about. But to find those core issues we care about, we have to start spending more time together as a council. When I was a quote-unquote city council intern back in 2011, it was commonplace, common practice for members of council to go out to dinner after long council meetings at Mike O'Shea's. That is still on the calendar, by the way. If you read a packet, it's still there. I do not know the last time that has happened. I'm going to be there at Mike O'Shea's in December if you all want to join me, or the Pump House or wherever, and I hope whoever has the chance to join me on council will, because that's how we find common ground with one another, is by conversations like this one. That's my core commitment as a leader. I'm not going to agree with folks in this room on every issue, but I will always listen and I will always engage because I know we all up here love Longmont and want what's best for our community.
Okay, so I'm going to make this one really quick, but back in my young buck days, I was like a bull in a china shop, and I was like, advocacy, 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 and it cost me a lot. And I learned really early on in the professional world that you have to advocate but balance with collaboration. And so it's such a fine line. You stated that you work with St. Vrain Valley, or you did. Johnny Terrell, he's the superintendent of St. Vrain Valley School District. Amazing man, assistant superintendent. He once told me, it's not always about being right, or else you'll be right by yourself. And I've really developed in that sense and made sure that when I come into conversations with other people, to listen. Because what they have to say is just as important as what I have to provide. And if I just listen and show them that I'm here to work with them, we could really get some things done. And then I'm going to leave it there because I need some time for my last question. Thank you.
I have to read my notes. So, until 2 years ago, I would guess that about, not forever, but for 4 or 5 years prior to 2 years ago, probably 90% of every vote that happened in City Council was 7-0. 7-0, 7-0, 7-0. There was no diversity of thought. There was no diversity of ideas. Everybody just agreed with each other, and that's why we now have thousands of apartment buildings, not buildings, but thousands of units with dozens and dozens of 300-unit apartment buildings going up all over Longmont. Nobody challenged anything. Nobody questioned. They all just followed each other like a bunch of lemmings. So about 2 years ago, with that election, Diane Christ won. She is the only person on council now that has business experience. For 38 years, she's been a CPA. And she brings a whole new perspective. I've had my own businesses for 35 years. I bring a whole new perspective. I had different types of businesses. So we need more diverse ideas and thoughts on City Council. It is not healthy either way to be just 7-0 all the time. And that's one of the things that I bring a lot, is a lot of questions, a lot of ideas, a lot of new and different ways of looking at things. I don't think I have all the answers, but I'll bring out ideas and let other people run with that and see where we end up. Thank you.
All right. Last question to bring us home, and this cuts to one of the foundational ideas of SOSA, and it's about social capital. And in the idea is that everyone in the community has something that they can bring to the table. So as a city council person, how can you all and the city council together work together to leverage the abundance of untapped social capital that is available here in Longmont?
When you say social capital, you're talking everything, all inclusive of all the people in the community?
Yeah, I think that the key idea is that everyone in the community has something to offer.
Yeah. So my background is in manufacturing, and this is going to take a little bit of a tangent because I've got 3 minutes. I'm gonna. Oh, you clicking somebody else down?
Yeah, Alex's time is going down.
Oh man.
We got Alex.
All right. This is a little inspiring story.
Yeah.
All right.
So. Well, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll have to get back 30 seconds to Alex.
All right.
Man.
All right.
All right. This is a good story. It's one of my favorite stories. It is about Toyota and General Motors. So I'm in manufacturing, right? There's a famous plant called the NUMMI plant. It was GM's worst performing plant. It's in California. And in the 1980s, the president at the time put on import restrictions so Toyota couldn't ship cars to the United States, so they had to do a joint venture. For those of you who don't know, Toyota is the world's greatest manufacturer. Anybody who manufactures anything copied Toyota's production system. They didn't know that GM didn't actually know how to make cars very well. They just showed them everything, and they did a joint venture in California. And it was GM's worst performing plant in the country. They had a horrible union management conflict. And Toyota came in after GM had sort of laid everybody off, and we're like, no, we're going to just rehire the union, rehire everybody that was here. And in 1 year, it was the highest performing plant in the United States because Toyota just manages people differently. They have a very what do I want to say? They value very highly people's intellect. They have a word for it in English. They call it automation. It's automation with a human touch. There's something that machines can just never do that people can bring to the table. And I think that it has informed me in all of the plants that I have built that people have an insight and wisdom that machines do not. And it is very important that people, it is like very difficult, more difficult than you probably realize, to have people believe that you've listened to them, that you understand, and that you are going to value what they've said. And that is really the challenge. And I think it is one of the things where we have to have mechanisms, coffee with council, and meeting people in the community and where they are. And in the other places that I've been, the people who are struggling, I asked the question about rent burden, very few people raise their hands. The people that I really want to help the most, and Crystal, I think, really wants to help the most, they're not coming to these events, which is really, for me, it's really heartbreaking because we are not getting the feedback from the people who are struggling and that we want to help. And man, I really want us to be able to make sure that everybody understands the struggles that the other people in our community are facing so we can come together and solve them.
So like John, I'm going to bring this into my professional experience a little bit. And I, believe it or not, I would not have bet that I would have had the most remaining time at the end had we started this. But here I am, nor would my wife. But I'm going to bring this into my own professional experience. So in my day job, I'm a classroom educator in the St. Vrain Valley School District. I teach high school kids. I'm around 14, 15, 16-year-olds all day. So if you see me going around saying 6, 7, or what's up, brah, that's why. Yeah, got a parent in the room. So when kids come into my classroom on the first day, the thing that I tell them is, some educators, say you gotta leave it at the door, right? You gotta leave all your life stuff and all the trauma you're going through and all that. You gotta come in and we gotta learn math together. What I tell kids is that you can't leave your life at the door. You can't leave your experiences at the door when you come into my classroom. In fact, bring it in. Bring that trauma, bring that pain, bring that, getting broken up with in a Chili's parking lot, which, by the way, is a true story in my life, but we don't need to get into that. Bring that all into your own experience in our classroom because that is what makes a classroom community better, when students are able to bring in their own experiences in their own lives. In Longmont, we are lucky to have so many residents who will make our own broader community better by bringing those experiences to the table. There's so many opportunities in our city for folks to get involved, whether it be a city board or commission, whether it be coming to events like this. I so appreciate what Chief Butler opened up with, talking about the role of citizenship in our world today. You are desperately needed. Whether I win or not, I'm going to continue trying to serve my community effectively in these different ways because Longmont's tradition tells us that when people bring their own talents, their social capital to the table, they are going to make the community better. Longmont was founded as a community by and for working class people. We were founded as the Chicago, Colorado Colony in 1871 by a group of people. The Chicago Tribune defined the city as a place that was going to be, quote, for the destitute and those who should seek new fields of enterprise. That's Longmont's history. If we come together, I'm out of time. Sorry, I didn't know that. So no, I thought we were going to stop. The point is we can come together, bring those things to the table. Thank you. Sorry.
Great.
Thank you for the eyes. I appreciate it. Nobody told me. Thanks.
Okay, so yes, I really liked what we talked about earlier in making sure, we are all a part of the solution, right? And I almost feel like we have to create this campaign or this movement in Longmont so that everybody can buy in. Like Jake said, but I'm going to say it in the Bible version, you were made for such a time as this, right? We were made to step up in times like these and make a difference. One of the things that we can do is break down this hierarchy and this structure that we've created to bridge this divide. And like you said, put all the responsibility on the weight of city council members who only work part-time on city issues, right? And expect these wonderful outcomes. We are all a part of the solution, and everybody can make a difference in this room today. They can choose to help a neighbor with their child. They can choose to help buy groceries for somebody. They can choose to just go and keep a senior company who's lonely at the senior home, right? We are all a part of the solution, and as a city, we need our community to buy in. And how can we do this? We can create spaces where we have these conversations and get people to raise their hand and commit to making a difference. Getting landlords to lower their rents and provide an affordable rate to families so that they're not having to choose between rent and food for their family. At the end of the day, it's just going to be so important for us to step up. Lastly, I just want to say, you have lots of wonderful candidates here today. And what I can say is, within this group of candidates, none of these candidates can offer council what I can offer you. And neither does anybody sitting in council offer council what I can offer. So just know you have 2 votes. You might have one of these candidates at the top of your mind, but I would love your second vote if you give me the opportunity. Thank you.
So without a doubt, everyone in the community has something to offer. Unfortunately, we can't have 100,000 people at City Council every Tuesday night to speak. That would just take way too long. I've been going to City Council for 6 years, again, because I got tired of everything being 7-0 all the time. Even though I don't get to vote, I realize that if I speak up, at least they can hear the other ideas that are out there. There have been a couple of cases where they voted on a situation and it was a done deal, and then I went up for my 3 minutes to speak, and even though they'd voted already, I spoke of my other solution to the problem. And then I found out later that when they were back in their own offices like the next week and they did their final vote, they actually changed their decision and used the suggestion that I made. So City Council does listen from time to time, not as often as I would like. But I think everybody watching on TV, you need to get more involved. Everybody on City Council needs to hear from you. City Council needs to have more booths at Rhythm on the River and Unity in the Community and the Art Walk and everywhere where people can just come up and talk to us. Earlier this year, I suggested to City Council that they have a booth at the farmers market, and then a few months later I found out they now had a booth at the farmers market. They never gave me credit for it, but to my knowledge, I'm the first one that said that. So anyhow, just to repeat from the beginning, my idea is that I will be a public servant. I am not running for City Council to tell everybody what to do, but to support what people want to have done. And as I said during the break, 75–80% of the people I've spoken to are against having 7, 10, and 14-story buildings. They're against all the apartment buildings. They're against more traffic. They're against having more homeless people and more crime. City Council right now is just building. I want to keep open space open. I want to protect the places that we have. I don't want to change zoning laws. If there's a property here that's zoned for X, the city shouldn't take it and change the zoning and then sell it to somebody else to put in Y. It should stay as X. So there are many places where I think City Council needs to get the heck out of the way, and especially in the realm of helping businesses to grow and start in Longmont and be more successful. There's too much red tape and paperwork from the city for what businesses can do to be successful. Thank you.
I'm not sure if my time got reset. Oh, all right. Tuck in, because it's going to be a long one. Thank you all for being here. Politics is not my favorite subject, but I'm passionate. And I'm passionate about the community that's here. I'm passionate about the community that's watching. I'm passionate about what SOSIS has done and Left Hand has done. I'm glad we're ending on this question because social capital was my favorite SOSIS session. I came to almost every single one of them, and they're amazing. And the thing that I want to do is I want you to be invited to the conversation. I want you to be invited to come to a board. Boards and commissions are open right now. There's something that you're passionate about, there's probably a board for you. That is the most empowering, enlightening thing that you can do for the community. You can have a voice that you can collect from all of your neighbors. I invite you to participate. because we need your expertise. There's this gentleman, Jim Ruff, who sends me data regarding sales tax, and it's amazing. He does it for free. And a lot of you folks are passionate about something. We need to get to know each other, to know what everybody can bring to the table. You might not know, but you might have an expert next to you that can help you with a problem. We need to build more community. We need to have more events where we get to know each other. Right now, social media is taking our attention away from each other, and we need to focus on each other. You all are amazing, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I love my kids and I love my wife, and this is the hardest thing that I've ever done. But every day that I talk to somebody new, it gives me more passion to keep charging on. Whether I'm on city council or on another board, I am here to serve you because I'm passionate about this community, because you all are amazing. So thank you so much for giving me the energy to do what I'm doing.
Great, thank you. So let's give all the candidates a hand. And just as a reminder, there's 6 candidates for the at-large position, the 5 who are here, and Regan Sage, who participated last week. 2 of them will be elected. And I just want to say thank you again. Mike and I were talking earlier tonight about what makes us optimistic. Having 6 people that have the courage to step forward for the community and to invest the time that it takes to do this. You know, many of us will go home and relax. They're probably going home to take care of the personal things that they didn't get to, or the work they didn't get to, or do more work on their campaign. So thank you all very much for stepping forward.
Thank you. All right. We're going to end with a question and a comment. The question is, and this is for our citizens, for all of us, is that would you rather be a consumer? Would you rather be a consumer of what others have in mind for you, or would you rather be a producer of the future you want to create? That's the difference, folks, in terms of, that's the question. And the comment is, you don't need permission to take what matters into your own hands. You do not need permission to take what matters into your own hands. And so keep that question and that statement in your minds as we move forward from here tonight. I also want to thank the candidates. And so this is our second one. Our third one will be October 16th, same place, same time. We have 4 mayoral candidates that will be here, and we'll be going through a similar like process for that night. So October 16th, Left Hand Brewery from 6 to 8. Put it on your calendar and be here. And so thank you. Safe travels and good evening. Thanks, Kristen.